Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Nevers. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, there was the opening where you had Penance as well as Amalia going after Bonfire because she's destroying one of the Beggar King shipments, and because she's kind of off on her own, she's not working with Malady anymore. And so I love that, like, obviously they end up getting the like catching her off guard, and I love the whole thing where like Penance keeps like stopping her hands, and she's like, for fuck's sake. And then, like, you know, Penance is like, she doesn't want any violence, and she's also saying like the same thing for Amalia. Amalia's like, wait, what? And it's just like, all right, you two, you're not going to fight or I'm going to come back over here. And I love that the entire time they were having their conversation, Penance was over there getting high off the oxy that she was burning. It's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, that's oxy over there that's burning or whatever. So, like, Amalia was getting high because Penance was getting high. Amalia was trying to convince Bonfire to join them, which for her, it's like, well, yeah, you've got your own mission or whatever, but the fact of the matter is she's kind of like off doing her own thing. But it's like, oh, you think I'm just going to go with you to the orphanage and stuff like that? It's just for Bonfire, it's like she'd rather just kind of do her own thing. But it is interesting that she is still going through the trouble of recruiting everyone, because to be fair, she wants to. Like, obviously, with Mary's song, she plans on recruiting a whole bunch of other touched as well. For what purpose? What is this mission she was talking to Malady about last episode? We don't know. But I even love that before they left, even Amalia went over there and was just like, I'll give me a couple huffs of this. But the question is, what was so interesting, it's like, I forgot what it was. Penance said something almost like, she was referencing something like, oh, like, did you, like, catch this feeling or whatever? And then Amalia was kind of like, yeah, I'm always like that. So I guess being high was meant to kind of, like, bring her down, because, like, whatever it is that Penance was kind of feeling, or, you know, talking about the clouds that you can't capture or whatever, it's like, Amalia seemed like she was saying, like, she's always dealing with something, and it's just like, it's always there, and this moment of getting high kind of helped bring her down and not to be stressing about it as much. Obviously, like, whatever it is that's going on with Amalia, like, Horatio knows. He had talked about the fact is that there was he talked about being across from his wife, and there being something that, like, his wife didn't know, and, you know, the way, like, Amalia was having the whole conversation, she was saying, like, yeah, I'm sorry for being, like, your big mistake or something like that. And it was, like, I believe, was it Harriet was nearby listening, but obviously not getting the full scope of the conversation. Like, whatever Amalia's deal is, Horatio has some idea. It seems like the others don't. Because he doesn't want patience, I said patience, he doesn't want Miss Adair going out with Amalia on these, like, it's like, yeah, you're going for a fight and stuff like that, and it's almost like you're looking for trouble and stuff like that sometimes, but it's like, you getting mixed up in that one thing, but don't drag Miss Adair into all of that as well. But, yeah, Amalia's definitely got her own demons, because it was even to the point, like, she was doing that thing where she was, like, touching her face, which she kind of referenced that in the first episode, like, her face isn't hers. So that's why I'm like, is that where, like, does Malady recognize her in a sense of, like, something happened to her face and it shifted? But it seemed like they might, once again, we don't know what happened when she went into that water and when she came out, because she was talking about it later on with Mary, that she's basically cursed with knowledge. But Mary's like, what knowledge do you know that you shouldn't know or something? Because she's like, I know something I shouldn't know. Because Mary's like, she's singing a song, and everyone, you know, at the orphanage is happy to have a song, but it's like a thing of, like, the moment, like, Amalia walks in the room, everyone gets quiet. She's like, don't make me out to be the villain. If you want to keep singing, just keep singing. She's not rushing Mary to, like, sing her song that reaches out to the touch. But Mary's kind of thinking, like, maybe there's a bigger reason for that, because you want me to bring the touch here because they'll feel safe, but maybe she's like, I don't, because she doesn't understand what Amalia is after, because everyone else has their own opinions about, like, oh, like, you know, what the purpose of everything is, and Amalia is the only one who knows the full truth. but you know what that mission is and everything, because she was like, yeah, like you're still a bit of a mystery to me, Amalia. I don't know that much about you. And Amalia talked about the fact is, like, obviously she sleeps with men, she doesn't really know their name. The fact of the matter is she kind of likes horses. The fact of the matter is, you know, she fights and stuff like she was talking, like giving bits about herself but still being super vague about a lot. But also, like, Horatio had brought up the whole sacrifice thing, whatever it is that she gave up, that like Amalia's like, you know, Malady will never know what I gave up, because Horatio is like, well, I think, no, Horatio was kind of like, Malady will have no idea what you gave up, because whatever it is, Malady's like, I don't know. Cause whatever it is, Amalia doesn't. It seems like maybe even she has some memory gaps, or there's something there, or at the very least, maybe she doesn't have some memory gaps. Whatever it is, it's something she's not really talking about. I thought she was going by a different name when she was called Molly last episode, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, right, Molly's probably just short for Amalia, you know. So there's that. The Beggar King finding out about Amalia and everything. About, like, right, them and Bonfire. He knows Bonfire. Him and he's like, basically like, oh, I knew her ever since she was, like, basically little, because, like, her dad or whatever, he knew about her dad. So it's like the Bonfire thing he's willing to kind of let slide, I guess, but he's also trying to figure out like what Amalia like is up to, you know. It's like he ended up like cutting that dude, because it's like, yeah, you guys running away, people saw you running away with my insignia, so you running away makes me look bad. The fact of the matter is, it was a girl that made you run away, yada yada, so on and so forth. So it's kind of like, all right, let's find out what they're up to. Some other things going on is Hugo convincing August, like, Augustus, like, oh, no, all the paperwork's already gone through, but the fact of the matter is, enjoy the business, yada, 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 when in actuality it was BS. Hugo was like, okay, get the paperwork through, like, because he's stringing Augustus along. As long as Augustus think the paperwork's already gone through, he's like, damn it, I'm kind of stuck with it. But he's like, don't worry, I'll take your name off of it after a while, you know, but it's like, for now, just enjoy the business and stuff like that. It was interesting, because he was, like, you know, doing his thing with that woman, but he thought she was touched, and maybe she was, but at the very least, he thought, like, something specific would happen when, like, she'd orgasm, but it wasn't the right person. It's like, oh, you just kind of bought me, like, a regular, like, Dutch woman or something like that. And so, I love them following him around, and then, like, Augustus has to be like, because he's like, yeah, come on, Augustus, just, like, say no, feel good about saying no, and the lady's just nearby, and he's just like, no, and she's just kind of smiling and still nearby, because she's like, oh, you're the one that does the hiring process, and because that's apparently how Hugo does the hiring process, is he sleeps with everyone, you know. But it's like, like, you know, he's trying to suggest, like, because he ends up talking about this with Monday later on. It's about trying to get women from the orphanage there, because obviously for him it's like the touched or a gold mine. We talked about that last episode, but like Monday's like, yeah, none of those women are going to leave the orphanage just to come basically be a part of the Fairman's Club. I don't know what part of it. I guess for him it's like, yeah, but I'm offering them a good wage and stuff like that. So I guess in his mind it's like, I'm offering them safety, something. Because he was kind of like pushing Monday to kind of tell him more about like what Amalia might be up to. Because it's like, at the very least, if they can convince the women there, or the touched in general there, that they'd be better at the Fairman's Club, like it'd benefit him. So... But we also learned some interesting things about Monday, in the sense that, like, it seems like he's into men, but he, like, hates himself for it, because it seems like that's what went down between him and Mary, because he was implying, like, you know, it's like, oh, you could never be, like, Mary knows that you can, like, she could never be what interests you, and, you know, Monday got pissed at Hugo being like, it happened once, I was super drunk, like, really, really drunk, but he was like, yeah, you were drunk the first time, so it's kind of like it happened again and again, so it's like, he hadn't accepted that aspect about himself, but Mary had, because she was like, you know, she's like, oh, I'm not worried about you making a move. She's like, not just because of that, but also because you're a gentleman, but also, like, you know, it's just this. I think maybe that's kind of where some of Frank's anger issue comes from. It's because a lot of self-hatred, you know. But Mary being like, no matter what ends up happening, the fact of the matter is, you will always be the person I call upon, and you know, you are very important to me, you know. So it's like, I won't talk about it much, but you need to kind of like not hate yourself as much as you do for being who you are and what you like, you know? because for her, it's like, even if you are like, you know, in a man, it's like, it doesn't change who you are, what kind of man you are at heart, you know, that kind of implying like, you know, that shouldn't matter, you know, even though I'm sure this time frame that matters. Maybe that's also why he hates Hugo so much, because it's also like, well, because he kind of gave into the desires and kind of hooked up with Hugo, but also like Hugo being like the literal man whore that he is, I'm sure that doesn't make you feel any better. It's like, you probably feel a little more okay about your sexuality and stuff if it wasn't just like Hugo you got mixed up with, like just him being the opportunist that he is and everything. I'm sure that just kind of rubs him the wrong way, because he was kind of poking at, you know, Monday not having anybody by his side, but then Monday's also like, yeah, but where are all your friends? Like, Hugo's saying all this stuff, but he's just as alone as Monday. He doesn't really have anybody. Like, Augustus is the only like friend he has, but even then, like, Augustus is just a means to an end to you, because like that's all anyone kind of is for Hugo. Like, people he can use and have sex with and make money off of. That's kind of, it seems like most of his relationships are kind of based around that. We had Melody getting Horatio to heal her wound, because she was aware of him. She's like, I don't really have many memories of it. She's like, I remember a doctor, a black doctor in a coat. And he was like, yeah, well, I'm real, kind of saying like that wasn't just in her head. Because she talks about the fact is like, oh, you're a doctor, but you're not a doctor of the head. So like, you're okay for now, because all the other doctors of the head are the ones that she ended up killing. But they're the ones that ended up raping and assaulting her. So I think that's, you know, kind of shows the difference. But it's like, you know, how do I know you're not just going to kill me just to get back at, like, Amalia or whatever? And she's like, fine, I won't. And he kind of patches her up. And he talks a little bit about, like, whatever it is between Amalia and Melody. But he kind of goes on his way and she kind of leaves him be. Lucy and Amalia, because it was Miss Adair and Myrtle that ended up finding those posters with the fake address from last episode, so they end up following it. And Lucy and I think last episode I was thinking like Lucy's power was her power was like superhuman strength or something like that. I gotta correct myself. It's actually like, it kind of actually reminds me a little bit of Daisy from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Her power kind of reminds me of Daisy's Quake ability. Because she uses it on the door handle, like I forgot they showcased her power last episode, because I remember they were talking about her breaking a statue or something, so that's where I got like, oh, maybe she has superhuman strength or something. I forgot, like, looking at the preview at the beginning of the episode, I forgot she showcased her power. She just was holding a vase or something and it shattered and broke in her hands. So they roll up on that lady. Then there's like one of the people that was after Myrtle that was there, but you know, more disfigured and being experimented on. The bottom of their jaw was going, there's like wires and machinery, and so together they were able to, you know, Adair was able to just kind of like take it down, and they ended up finding all the books on like all the on all of the touch that were, I guess, targeted. Like, either these are the people they had already gotten to, or at the very least people that were on their list. I'm assuming it was people they had already gotten to. And so Adair brings it to Lavinia and lets her know what's what. But obviously we know Lavinia's connected to all this. So sadly, when she's letting her know, like, oh, we're going to be in the park, I was like, that's probably not a good thing. Cause we, you know, jumping to it, well, for one, on the way there, the Beggar King's dude ends up attacking her, and his power is to basically walk on water. And it's not just any part of, like, because even when he died at the end, I was curious, like, and it seems like, I guess depending on what your turn is, it stays active even after death, because after Home Dude died, I mean, not unless she was doing it for a while enough to kill him, so I'm pretty sure he was dead. He was still floating above water, because even, and I love how she used that again. For one, that was just pretty dope. She's swimming and he's stomping, because I guess that, because I was wondering, like, how is that going to benefit you? It's like, oh, because he can't reach underwater. His power stops him from in general going underwater. So I guess, like, there's no turning it at all. It's just on all the time, which is interesting to know that, because it seems some turns have to be turned on and activated, while others kind of just activate on their own. And it seems like there's others like his, and potentially Adair's is like, it's just on all the time. But what I thought was interesting, because that's why he couldn't just reach down and get her. He had to wait for her to come up the breathe for air. But that's how she was avoiding him, was staying below water. But then he pulls out like that hook on a chain and was attacking, and she basically waited till he like yanked her up, wrapped it around his neck. She went underwater where his body wouldn't go, and so she's using like, because basically him against the water was, his body against the water was like basically him laying against the ground, and she's like strangling him like that. I was like, that was a super badass scene how that like unfolded like that. So, but at the park, you know, Mary had done her song, and even, you know, Monday was there because he was hoping to be there, even if it was just, you know, he couldn't hear anything, because I guess maybe there was some part of him hoping like, hey, at the very least, if he was, you know, a touched, then I think for him, maybe, you know, maybe he was thinking like, maybe since the last time we saw each other, maybe my turn activated, so maybe I'm a touch. But it's also, he just like wanted to be around her. He was probably hoping to hear her song so that maybe he could use that as an excuse to kind of be around her. But sadly, he isn't touched because he couldn't hear the song. But obviously, we also saw like the woman that was with, the dude that was with Harriet isn't one either, because he couldn't hear the song. He wasn't affected by it like all the other touch work. Because I'm skipping over a lot of stuff, because that Desiree, which I was calling her Desire, I saw her name in the subtitle as like Desiree, but I thought I was remembering it wrong, so I was like just remembering from the subtitle, so I was like maybe Desire, but it's like no, Desiree, the woman that ended up luring and helping with the whole capture of other touch. They ended up getting Desiree to interrogate her, kind of scare her up a little bit, you know, by having one of the others kind of use a spooky voice on, like, it was a device of Adair's to just scare her, to get her blood pumping. Then Desiree kicks in, her turn kicks in, and it's like, okay, so who are you working for? Why did they choose you? It turns out it's like, oh, they chose me because of my tragedy. She had a child that had the ability to turn all liquid into water. So she did the opposite of Jesus. She also fixed a well that was kind of like making people sick, but she was also like that, you know, that was unnatural. She was also having a child, so she drowned. She talked about drowning that woman, her daughter, and her own grandchild, because for her it was like, you know, there was splashing and all this stuff, and Lucy, it set Lucy off that Lucy was going to attack her, but Mary stopped her, and then Mary didn't touch her. And, you know, Miss Adair talked about Lucy's past, that Lucy, her powers came about sometime after she gave birth, and like the person that came into this world that loved her, she ended up breaking her baby's bones because of her turn. And it's like, damn, dude, that's a tragic situation. So she kind of she was wearing her gloves, because I guess it takes physical contact with her hands that causes her powers. Like anything that comes into physical contact gets, like, you know, shaped, or rather quaked, and breaks apart, like the vase, like the doorknob. When they were going to that address, or, you know, as she was going to do to that lady, they ended up knocking the woman back out again. But it was just like, to know that, you know, the hate runs so deep that she was willing to kill her own child for. So that kind of makes sense why, like, whoever is responsible for all this ended up recruiting him. Because it actually turns out, I'd actually forgot to talk about it, Hugo admitted that he was the one, well, at least to like Monday, like, well, during the conversation, he's the one that got the Hugo's the one that got Monday signed off on, you know, the raid, because he was hoping to find something there so that he could convince the touch to come work for him rather than being at the orphanage, because it's like all those touched there, because those are the only touched he's publicly aware of existing, because obviously the others out there either don't know that they're touched, or you know, it's like he was hoping to kind of convince him, like I was bringing up earlier, to kind of benefit him for his business. But nevertheless, circling back to things, Mary's song, she's singing it and reaching all the touched, and they're feeling it, this song of happiness, you know, and then she ends up getting shot. It ends up being the guy that got released from prison. I guess his whole thing is he is touched, because when he was in prison, the stuff from him was oozing, but it like some of it would crystallize. So I guess like someone gave him something to kind of like utilize his ability through, like a machinery to kind of fire those bullets or whatever. But he ended up killing Mary. Monday ended up eventually putting him down, but it was too late, you know? And it's like, well, the fact is, I don't think that was the Beggar King doing it. Could have been, but it's like, well, who else knew? Maybe it could have been Lord Mason, because but they were organizing something. I don't know if it was connected to that. Lavinia knew where they were, so that could have been done on purpose. Like, but it's like, I don't know if she because maybe whoever it was was specifically targeting Mary because they knew about Mary's ability. So it might have been a thing of, maybe Lavinia doesn't want all the touch gathered underneath Amalia to do her thing with, because I don't see that being like a malady thing. It could have been, but it's like whoever it was that got him released from prison, considering he did all that at the opera, it had to be someone of like power and notes. So you'd assume like Lavinia, maybe Lord Mencia, but I don't know. Which, like, later on, like, that guy was setting him up the telephone line or whatever, and he went to the lower basement, but the lady kind of had him move on, but it's like, oh, the dogs, but part of me is like, it's his daughter, because his daughter was struck by the thing that gave everyone the abilities, that made them touch. Like, she has a grave, but I'm like, I think she's still alive. I think he's just got such a stance against the touch, probably because like his daughter, because obviously some of the touch look more normal than others. If it wasn't for some's ability, they wouldn't stand out. Others aren't, as lucky. And I think his daughter's one of them. I think she transformed into something not human because of it, and maybe that plays into why he's kind of got the hard on he does for the touched. I don't know. Because it also seemed like the lady that worked for him was trying to, like, hopes that he would get, like, a new mistress in the house or something like that, which was like, yeah, I'm content with just what we have in the house, and that's it. Maybe potentially his daughter's circumstances, if they are what I think they are, maybe that plays a role in it. But, despite everything, Mary singing her song did work in the end, because at the end Bonfire showed up, as well as all the other touch that were, I wonder, because it was, the Amplifier, which I love that it's like, oh, you like, Adair was kind of like, oh, you gave it like such a boring name, and because Mary's like, what's this thing actually do? And she's like, well, and she looks at Amalia and she's like, it amplifies, because she was so bummed that like she gave it such a dull name, because she had given it like a specific name, but the name didn't do a good enough job describing what the device actually was. But nevertheless, regardless of things ending this way, yes, Mary's gone, so there's no more recruiting others, but sadly, her song did reach the others, and she was whether Mary's death, put a complete damper on what it is that Amalia had planned, or at the very least, her death meant something, because now it's like her song reached so many people, at least around the city, because of the Amplifier. So it reached and touched so many, and so many came to the orphanage, realizing what they are, and maybe this brings us one step closer to finding out what Amalia's plan is, like what it is this mission is. So, episode presented a lot of really interesting things to kind of keep in mind as we go forward. I'm curious to see where all of this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.